Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to go ahead. We've got all of us. Yep. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And we will start with an invocation, which we observe by a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I just want to, excuse me, before we do roll call, in case anybody is online or here for this item, Number 4, Tapson's Tree Service and Appeal has been withdrawn. And we'll read into the record later on in the evening, the official withdrawal, but just wanted to save anybody time if you're hanging out online or waiting here to testify on that one. And with that, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Corliss.
Here.
Halliburton.
Here.
Morales.
Here.
Nash.
Here.
Stead.
Here.
Willits.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. We have minutes up for approval from the January 23rd.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the minutes of the 8:30 a.m. and 12 p.m. meetings on January 23rd, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Clerk, will you call the roll?
Halliburton.
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
Nash.
Yes.
Stead.
Yes.
Willits.
Yes.
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Oh. All right. So now we've got a whole bunch of special business. I messed up last week and didn't see the person in the audience that I was nominating for a commission. So I think I see Michelle back there and Tony. Are there others that are here that are up for nomination today? Yes. Moore is your last name. I'm sorry, I'm spacing on your first name. Jennifer, that's right. Okay, and if anybody's online for this, please let us know because I'll give you a chance to say hello. And with that, we'll move into it. But it was pretty embarrassing when somebody was like raising their hand. I kept saying nobody's here, and he was right there where Jennifer's sitting. Okay. First up, I had asked. I'll address these. We'll probably do these by type of commission. So the first is the appointment of Kathy Corliss to the Boise City Ada County Housing Authority.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent for the appointment of Kathy Corliss to the Boise City Ada County Housing Authority for a one-year term ending January 2025.
Without objection. Councilmember, thanks so much for representing the city on that important commission. Really appreciate it. All right, and now we have 3 folks, Michelle Doan, all 3 of them are here, Tony Torres and Jennifer Moore, to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I want to thank each of you for your service, and after we take the action, if you want to come up and say anything, please feel free, but don't feel obliged.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent for the appointments of Michelle Doan, Tony Torres, and Jennifer Moore to the Planning and Zoning Commission for 4-year terms ending February 2023.
Without objection.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
can I just speak to that really quickly?
Oh, yeah.
So I haven't worked with Ms. Stone yet. I'm sure she'll be an amazing participant in the commission. But I have worked with Ms. Moore on the commission for several years, and I've worked with Mr. Torres in other capacities. But we're so lucky to have the service of these 3. This is a commission not to be taken lightly. It's a great place to get your feet wet and how process is done. And I can't wait to read the testimony, and just thank you so much for your commitment to the city and the service that you'll be providing.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I just want to speak. I don't know the other 2 applicants, so congratulations. And but I do know Tony, and I know his dedication to this city, and I would challenge everyone else to. I don't think there's going to be somebody that's more excited to do this than Tony, and it's been great to get to know him and to see his commitment to this city, and we're thankful for your service, Tony.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go
Councilmember
ahead.
Halliburton, I think there's a small chance that we read in their appointment ending in 2023, and I just want to make sure maybe I missed that. And I think it's 2028.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent for the appointments of Michelle Doan, Tony Torres, and Jennifer Moore to the Planning and Zoning Commission for 4-year terms ending February 2028.
Without objection. All right, would any of you like to come up? And I just want to point out too that Ms. Moore, this is a reappointment. And as the council president pro tem said, this is a lot of work. And so I appreciate your willingness to come back at it because it's a lot of work and it's deep work. And so to have residents that volunteer for the first time, like Michelle and Tony are, be willing to come back for a second time with the knowledge that you have is deeply appreciated. So thanks. Yeah, and you're welcome to come up and say hello if you'd like. And also, I don't want you to feel like you have to stay through the rest of the meeting either. Ms. Doan, and is this your family with you? Hello, thanks for coming.
Since you don't know me, my name is Michelle Doan. I live at 2900 North 32nd Street. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I'm super excited to do this, and I hope I represent us well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tony Torres.
I think most of you already know me, but I just want to say that I am very honored and grateful for the appointment, and I look forward to getting to work, and I look forward to working with the two of them and everyone else on the commission.
And
Thank
your
you.
wife is with you too.
And my wife is with me as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, happy birthday.
Jennifer Moore, I don't know if I say my address, but 1349 South Division Avenue. Thank you all for your service, by the way, and all you do for our city. But also thank you to put your trust in me again to continue to serve. I'm happy to do it, and it has been an honor for the last 4 years, and I'm looking forward to the next 4 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'll thank the families in advance too. I've first served on the Parks Board, and that was kind of like an afternoon meeting, so I didn't necessarily miss an evening, but then I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission for quite a while, and then council. And my kids and my husband just kind of used to like me not being home one night, and they started lots of great traditions. But it's a family thing too. So appreciate not only the service of the volunteers that give us the time, but those that back them up too. So thank you very much for coming. All right. Do we have Emily here? I didn't think I saw any other hands, but I'm not going to make this mistake. Nope. Okay. Next up, we have the appointment of Emily LaRoe to the Open Space and Clean Water Advisory Committee.
Madam Mayor, I request unanimous consent for the appointment of Emily LaRoe to the Open Space and Clean Water Advisory Committee for a 3-year term ending January 29th, 2027.
Without objection. All right, I want to thank Emily for her willingness to serve. I like many of you that I spoke with last week, I spoke with Emily as well, and was really impressed by her interest in getting more involved and the background that she brings to this, and look forward to her service on this commission. And then one more, Christopher Moore, who I did not see. Also not online? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent to the appointment of Christopher Moore to the Historic Preservation Commission for a 3-year term ending January 2028.
Without objection. All right, and the same goes for Christopher. I enjoyed the conversation that we had and his interest in serving, and he joins, I believe, 2 other folks that we appointed last week. Oh, that looks like the next item is related to.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we correct the appointments of Michaela Owens and TJ Sales, and the record reflect that they are appointed to 3-year terms ending January of 2027.
Without objection. All right, that's all correct now. We have 3 new members for the Historic Preservation Commission. Thanks, everybody. Thank you all so much. Enjoy your evenings. All right, now this is an item that I've got 2 council members that have something to say about. We're going to go over revised findings for CUP 2347.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself as I wasn't here when the original findings were presented.
I too will recuse myself from this one as well, from not being here.
Do we have one more recusal?
Madam Mayor, this is Councilmember Halliburton. I don't know how this is going to work.
I think we got it figured out.
Do we? Okay, great. I'm going to recuse myself as well. I recused myself during this actual application hearing.
Oh, okay.
So, Madam Mayor, after conferring with legal counsel, it sounds like a quorum is number of council members in the room, not
Yep.
acting on the decision.
Yep.
So.
So
Okay.
we're good.
Um,
But we have a report
okay.
from Matthew, excuse me. Welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As some of you may recall, on December 12th, 2013, City Council heard a request for a conditional use permit for a parking reduction associated with an existing single-family home located at 812 West Brumbach Street. The Planning and Zoning Commission's decision to approve the conditional use permit requiring one off-street parking space was appealed by the applicant. At this hearing, council approved the appeal of the CUP, allowing for a complete reduction of the required off-street parking spaces from 2 to 0, and instructed the planning team to return with revised findings, which have been included in your packets this evening. If the council agrees with the new findings, then a motion is needed to adopt them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I reviewed the revised findings for CUP 23000047 and believe they accurately reflect the discussion at the council meeting and move that they be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Clerk, will you call the roll?
Madam Mayor,
Oh, yes.
just as a side note, because I voted against this appeal the first time, I'll be voting against the revised findings.
All right, thank you. Clerk?
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
No,
2 in favor, 1 opposed, motion
Oh,
carries.
that was a squeaker. All right. Thanks, everybody. Next up, we've got the consent agenda. All items with an asterisk are considered to be routine, will be enacted by one motion, no separate item unless a council member or citizens request to be removed, and then it'll be considered in its normal sequence.
Madam Mayor, I move that we would defer the 3 city council travel requests to a date certain of February 6, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, clerk.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
yes,
Corliss,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Madam Mayor, just for an explanation on that, we just need to correct the dates to April 2024.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll be
Okay.
doing that next week.
Great, thanks.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion.
Madam Mayor, this
Yes.
Councilmember Halliburton. Just a couple things on here. One is Jordan Morales is getting appointed to the VRT board on here as well. I figured since we gave so many other people shout outs for being on new boards, that we would give Councilmember Morales a shout out as well as Councilmember Willets, who is being put onto the EMT board. So 2 other positions that we've got council members going into. And then also there's some really great things in this consent agenda in regards to Fire Station 13 in Northwest Boise. This has been something so long in the making. It's exciting to see this moving forward at a fast pace.
Thanks for calling those out.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
another comment with some good things on the consent agenda. We'll see that there is opportunity that Parks and Rec is going to be doing some more maintenance in Hyatt Reserve. And while I know that's in Councilmember Nash's district, it is pretty near and dear to everybody in West Boise, and it's a real treasure. So I'm happy to see some investment there.
Thank you. Clerk?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Unanimous consent request? Did
No.
we move? Okay, sorry, I apologize.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes,
Corliss,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
All right, we will move into readings. We've got a list on second reading.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on second reading be read by number and title only and filed for the third reading calendar.
Without objection.
ORD-1-24, an ordinance CAR 23-8 for property located at 9797 West Shields Avenue, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance, and adjacent rights of way from R-1Z residential traditional to R-2 residential compact setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date. ORD 2-24, an ordinance CAR 23-9 for property located at 11880 West Overland Road, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance and adjacent rights of way from R-1A, large lot residential, to R-3, urban residential, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date. ORD 3-24, an ordinance CAR 23-10 for property located at 1200 and 1208 South Leadville Avenue, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance and adjacent rights of way from R-2, compact residential, to R-3, urban residential, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of this zone change and providing an effective date. ORD 5-24, an ordinance CAR 23-14 for property located at 3102 North Sycamore Drive, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance and adjacent rights of way from R-1A/SC-0, large lot residential with Sycamore character overlay, to R-1B/SC-0, suburban residential with Sycamore character overlay, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date. ORD 6-24, an ordinance CAR 23-15 for property located at 220 West Gowan Road, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance and adjacent rights of way from I-1 light industrial to I-2 heavy industrial, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date.
Thank you. We will now move into public hearings. So we've got a couple public hearings tonight. What I'll do with them is I'll just check in on staff, the applicant or appellant, and then whether or not the public is here to speak both online and in person. So I'll just do check-ins. If you're here for one and you didn't raise your hand at the beginning of it, don't worry, because I'll check again towards the end once we've heard from folks. First up, we've got SOS 23-10. With this one, we've got Sabrina Mortensen. Welcome back. The applicant, Joe Canning. Oh, there you are. Hello, sir. And then we don't expect the neighborhood association, but I just want to check. West Bench. And then is anybody from the public here for this one? Anybody online? All right, so on this one, I might just check in to see if you're okay and in agreement with everything. Go ahead.
Right, thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The item before you is a request to vacate easements and associated plat notes for lots 16 through 20, Block 1 of Fairbanks subdivision, generally addressed at 3280 North Maple Grove Road. In 2017, the property lines between the subject parcels were adjusted. As a result, the platted easements no longer align with the parcel boundaries. As detailed in your packets, the applicant proposes to vacate the existing easements on the subject property and record new easements which align with the current boundaries in order to simplify future development and redevelopment of the parcels. All easement holders have provided letters of approval of the vacation. As detailed in your packets, there are also multiple notes on the Fairbanks subdivision plat which reference easements on the subject parcels, which the applicant also requests to vacate. The vacations will only affect the subject parcels and won't affect any other lots within the subdivision. The applicant will be required to comply with public works standards and record new easements prior to the adoption of a resolution to vacate the existing plat notes and easements as detailed in your packets. The proposed new easement arrangement is shown on this slide for your reference. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of the vacation request, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Mortensen? All right, and I'll ask the applicant, are you in agreement with terms and condition of the staff report? Is there anything further you'd like to say? Good to see you. All right. And with that, I'll just note for the record that the applicant agrees with the terms and conditions and recommendation of the staff report. And want to confirm that nobody is here for this. I will close the public hearing and take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve application SOS 23-00010 Boise City vacation of plat note and public utilities easement at 3280 North Maple Grove Road on 1.5 acres in a C1D zone.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second discussion? All right, clerk, will you call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
And next up, we have the O'Brady subdivision, SUB 23-25, Sabrina again. And then the applicant, Derek Kerner. Welcome. All right, and then we don't expect the Depot Bench Neighborhood Association, but just want to check in. Don't see them here online. Is anybody here from the public to testify on this one? All right, so I'll check in after the presentation.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The item before you is a request for preliminary and final plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 5 buildable lots on approximately 1.28 acres located at 3915 West Camas Street in an R1C zone. All of the proposed residential lots comply with the dimensional standards of the zone. No public streets are proposed due to the small size of the subdivision and the lack of potential connections in the future. The existing home on Lot 1 will maintain its existing individual driveway, and all other lots within the subdivision will be accessed by a common driveway from Camas Street. There's existing rolled curb along the site's frontage on Camas Street, and as conditioned, the applicant will install a detached sidewalk and street trees along the subdivision's frontage. The applicant also proposes to construct a 5-foot wide attached sidewalk along one side of the common driveway to provide pedestrian connectivity within the development. A portion of the proposed improvements is located within an existing irrigation easement along the western side of the site, and a recommended condition of approval requires the applicant to obtain a license agreement from the easement holders prior to the city signing the final plat. The applicant intends to remove 3 existing trees from the site in order to accommodate the proposed development. New trees will be planted along the site's frontage and within the front yards of each of the proposed lots. And the applicant also will contribute to the Community Forestry Tree Mitigation Fund in order to mitigate the remaining caliper inches that can't be accommodated on site. In conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary and final plat, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Sabrina? And I'll ask the applicant, are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? And I'll ask that the record reflect that the answer is yes. With that, I want to confirm nobody is here to testify on this from the public. I'll close the public hearing and take a motion. And thanks for the looking at detached sidewalks as well as the tree piece.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve O'Brady subdivision application SUB 23-00025 preliminary final plat at 3915 West Camas Street on 1.2 acres located in an R1C zone.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Councilmember Halliburton, just real quick, this is such a great infill project right here, and I just wanted to let the developer know that I appreciate them keeping the existing house as well. I love it when we have these applications that come in front of us that bring more housing online, but also don't make us tear anything down in the process. I think it's such an important thing when we're talking about our climate goals and different things like that. And I just want to thank the developer for bringing a really good project forward.
Madam Mayor, if I make one other comment, along with Jimmy, I do want to thank the developer for, this is a great example of a gentle infill and a currently established neighborhood, so thank you.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Clerk, we call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have an appeal, DRH 23-121, Elizabeth Tullis on Eastman Street. So with this one, I see Elizabeth in the audience. We'll hear from staff, then the appellant, and then, is anybody here from the public on this topic? Anybody online?
Madam Mayor, we have the Neighborhood Association online.
The Neighborhood Association is online. Great, that was my next question. So actually, after the appellant, we'll go to the Neighborhood Association. I'll do a final check on the public, and then we'll have staff with a wrap up, and then the appellant gets the last word with a final rebuttal. I'll go through it all again, but just so we know what to expect. You have to remember it. And with that, so we'll be sure, it's Nina, right? We'll be sure to go from the appellant to Nina at the right time. With that, go ahead, Josh. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Josh Wilson, Design Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Nice to meet the new council members tonight. The item before you is an appeal of a Historic Preservation Commission's denial of an appeal for a certificate of appropriateness to allow vinyl windows on a property within the North End Historic District. The property is located at 2123 West Eastman Street, and the structure in question is located in the rear of the property on a uniquely shaped parcel that is accessed only from the alley. To provide some background on this application, there was a code enforcement complaint received by the city that vinyl windows had been installed without approval. The applicant was advised to submit a certificate of appropriateness application, which was subsequently denied. That denial was appealed to the Historic Preservation Commission. That hearing took place in August. The Historic Preservation Commission unanimously denied the appeal, and then the applicant submitted an appeal that is before you tonight. So for clarification on the application process, in the historic districts, any exterior change to a property is required to go through a certificate of appropriateness application process. There are two types of reviews. There are administrative and HPC reviews. This was initially an administrative review. Those are reserved for minor changes to properties, things like windows, new doors, new roof, things like that. Applications are judged by the standards for review contained in the zoning code. Those standards for review relate to the residential design guidelines for historic districts, the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation of historic properties, and then findings about compatibility and congruity with the historical district and Blueprint Boise. Specifically in this situation, the residential guidelines do say that the use of vinyl windows is generally not appropriate. There has certainly been some confusion about the term generally not appropriate in the past, and certainly in hearings before this body. But in the historic guidelines document, the term generally not appropriate means not allowed except in very specific circumstances. As it relates to windows, vinyl windows are only allowed in the district as egress windows within window wells from basements. This is certainly guidance that would have been given to the applicant if an application had been submitted prior to the installation of the windows. The windows in question, again, are on that accessory structure at the rear of the property. 3 of the windows and a door do face the alley and are visible from a public right-of-way. The remainder of the windows are interior to the property and inside a privacy fence and would not be visible. So the appellant submitted appeal grounds contesting the decision. Number 1, structure is not historic or in need of preservation. Staff's response is that the historic guidelines apply to all properties in the district, whether they are considered contributing or non-contributing. So that is not an error in the commission's decision. Number 2, that the structure is on a non-conforming lot situated on an alley. The non-conforming lot status is not relevant to, again, the placement of a not allowed material within the district, and therefore the commission did not make an error in their decision based on that ground. Number 3, the structure's windows cannot be seen from public streets on 21st and Eastman Street. Again, the placement of vinyl windows is prohibited throughout the entirety of the district, regardless of visibility of the facade of the building. So the commission did not err on that ground. And denial of due process rights. The applicant was afforded the opportunity for public hearing and the appeal process that ultimately landed them here tonight. So we do find that there was not an error or a grounds for appeal based on that. On all the proceeding, the planning team does recommend that City Council deny the appeal, uphold the Historic Preservation Commission's decision to deny the application. The applicant or an appellant has not submitted grounds for appeal that demonstrate an error on the part of the Historic Preservation Commission, and I would stand for any questions.
Questions for Josh?
Josh, could you speak to why we allow vinyl windows in window wells?
Madam Mayor, Council President Nash, yes, it is, I think, an allowance for very limited visibility situations. So a lot of the standards for review in the historic districts are based on appearance and integrity of the appearance of the historic structure and its compatibility with the district. So those window wells for egress windows, we traditionally have allowed those, and it's simply because they are on the sides of buildings behind privacy fences and generally very not visible.
And could you tell me the public right of way that these windows are facing, is that an alley or is that a street?
Madam Mayor, Council President Nash, correct, that is a public alley.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Josh, just at the end of the Historic Preservation Committee, there was just a little bit of confusion, I think, in the motion making with the number of windows, whether they were facing the street, whether they were not, and it kind of went back and forth. So what I'm hearing is that there's a total of 6 windows. 3 of them are facing the back alleyway, 3 of them are facing the interior yard. But you're also saying that it doesn't really matter whether they're facing the exterior or not, or facing the public or not, because we wouldn't allow them either way. But there's a total of 6, 3 in the alley, 3 in the backyard.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, it's my understanding there are 3 facing the alley and 4 on the private interior yard, but I'll let the applicant address that. And correct, it does not matter if they were visible or not.
And then just one follow-up question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So I think, sometimes people will come to us and they'll say, well, we've seen other houses that have these vinyl windows in these areas, or maybe there was already a vinyl window that was in place by the time that I moved in. And it seems like typically that happens because, one, I guess either they put it in and nobody complained about it, or 2, they were put in before it was actually a historic district. So there's some vinyl windows, and maybe that door that we see in the back that was installed prior to it being in a historic district. And so that sometimes causes some confusion. Am I getting that right?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, absolutely. I think both of those cases are correct in that our code, our enforcement process works on a complaint-driven basis. So there are certainly properties that complaints are not filed against, and there are situations where they were installed prior to the district existing, correct?
Okay, thank you.
You're up. Come on up. Sure. But no, I'm sorry. If it's a question that you want a public answer on, you're going to have to direct it this way, and then we'll figure out the answer just for the
All right.
sake of staff.
All right, I just didn't know what.
But if you want to privately ask them a question before you present, you're welcome to do that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, oh, I can. I will.
All right, thank you and welcome.
Hello.
You're good.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
My name's Elizabeth Tullis, and I live at 1000 East Pennsylvania in Boise, Idaho. And thank you for hearing my appeal on this. I'm just going to read from my notes so I don't get distracted and waste everyone's time. So if you just want to bear with me, I will address again a lot of the things that he has brought up. So first, the resident structure at issue. Oh, by the way, he's got some pictures. Could you just rotate them through and I can stop you?
I think you've got a clicker. Is there a clicker
I
there?
have a clicker.
Once he starts it, you can click through. Were the pictures in the record? The council has the original record.
I believe that they were, and Madam Mayor, the computer is saying it doesn't support this file format, so I'll keep on working
Oh,
on it.
okay. All right. So the resident structure at issue that I chose to install 6 vinyl windows and 1 back door to replace 6 failed wooden windows and 1 back door is a rectangular box, approximately 25 feet wide and 30 feet long. It's a 750 square foot structure that sits in an alley between Alturist and Eastman Street. It has no architectural details, not one. And is certainly none of the type that of the photos shown in the ordinance or mentioned. And it's been determined as historically speaking, as a building that is a non-contributing structure. The residence structure is the sole and principal structure on a legally described lot. The city planner added photos of other residents in view that is on another legally described lot and has nothing to do with my request. I've requested that those photos be taken out of the presentation because I think that they add confusion to the process. And my request has been denied in the past. Third, the lot that this residence sits on and is legally described as is a non-conforming in 3 important respects. A is a triangular shaped lot. Is this my clicker? That's not on there. No, that's not coming up.
They
You
do
saw
have
it
the
in
picture.
his.
Yeah, we saw it in
Yeah,
his and they have
okay.
it in their record.
It is a triangular lot and perhaps one of the only residential ones in the North End. I've never seen another one like this. It occurred because a part of the old Boise Canal, whose jurisdictional right precede the city, cuts diagonally through what might have otherwise been a normally rectangular lot, but for the location of that canal in that piece, on that piece of property. The location of this existing residence structure is an odd-shaped lot, makes it a candidate for a future revision and will never be a candidate for historical preservation. The lot does not have access to a public street. It can only be accessed from the alley between Alturas and Eastman Streets. This creates another odd reality. Of the windows I seek to replace, the only ones that can be seen without scaling the fence of another person's property are 3 windows that face the alley. So even if the windows I want to install were in a historic preservable structure, which they're not, they can't be seen from the public streets or sidewalks. Even the signs to advertise the hearing and the prior one before the commission could not be seen from the public street or sidewalk as they were placed where the city required. The canal overflows from time to time, 3 times in the last summer alone, and that overflow floods naturally back against this small residence. As a result, I've had to replace drywall, carpeting, wood flooring, paint. I had it completely redone last summer. And in my opinion, that floodwater and moisture has contributed to the failure of the wood windows that I'm seeking to replace right now. They were swollen and not able to be opened. That's an egress issue, I think. They were rotted, they were molded, they needed to be replaced. Let me see. So the reality makes the choice of windows more critical, and I believe that vinyl is the best choice for an owner of this property and its tenants alike, so that they have a usable, window. The city planner has made a legal decision, and I believe it's made an error to decide that vinyl windows cannot be installed in the historic district because the ordinance prevents it. And that is what he told the commission on my last appeal. The ordinance actually says, generally, vinyl windows won't be permitted. That language suggests that there will be exceptions. I believe this non-contributing structure and the realities of the lot configuration and the lack of the public view make it a clear choice for an exception to the word generally. The residence has been used for a rental since I have owned it since 2010. And I believe it has been used as a rental for the last 30 years. It is a low budget, 720 square foot rental with alley only access, no historical features. And as it sits, it will never be historically important nor viewable from the public. In summary, This is not an historic preservational structure. It cannot be seen from a public street or sidewalk, and that alone should dictate that I should get a permit to install simple vinyl windows. Significantly, I have to note that the city claims that it is trying to find ways to make housing affordable for the less financially fortunate, and particularly for those people who rent. And I support candidates for that very reason. But this decision of the city planner and the Preservation Commission, if upheld, will result in less affordable housing. The difference in cost between vinyl windows I hope to install by lawful permit and wood windows of the type that have failed in this environment before will be more than $5,000. Any landlord who understands rental demand and pricing with a property of this type, will either not replace failing windows or will push that cost onto the tenant, and rents will increase accordingly. If the city really seeks affordable housing for those who truly need it, and it will not force me or other owners with valid exceptions to the word generally to put expensive windows in a non-contributing structure on an alleyway, and won't require that result when that non-contributing structure is sitting on a lot that has no access to a public street, cannot be seen from a public street or sidewalk. If the city really believes that this ordinance should legally bar a common sense material to never appear again in the historic district, it should amend the ordinance and so declare. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'll see if anybody has questions, if that's all right.
Just one question. What year was this house built?
It was built in, I think it was the 1930s, 1940s.
This particular one? Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I guess I do have a question. This is Councilmember Halliburton.
Yep.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
Elizabeth, it's good to see you. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I'm not feeling really great today. So we've got this in front of us. We've got a relatively narrow scope in which we can look at it, trying to figure out where the Historic Preservation Committee erred. And I'm trying to figure out where the error is. And so when I'm hearing from staff, I'm hearing that it doesn't necessarily matter if the windows can't be seen, we would still require that. And so that kind of, potentially takes away that argument. The generally used, that's not been something that I've seen a lot of times. We've always like upheld, wood windows, pretty hard in the historic district. The vinyl windows has been something that we, really have only made those exceptions for if they have been in a crawl space, or not a crawl space, but an egress window out of a basement. So I'm trying to figure out if there was anything else that you said besides the not being seen and besides arguing the general use. Was there a third thing that you brought up, or were those the two main things? I don't think I worded that very well. I'm not feeling good.
Oh, it was the shape of the lot that can't be, that is a very particular shape. It's not a regular shape in Boise, and only goes on to the alley. And it can only be accessed for the alley and not seen by any, any of the public. So I don't think that those windows detract from any other surrounding neighborhood houses.
Let me try to reword that, Madam Mayor. I'll just try this one more time. I'm trying to figure out if you're pointing out errors that you think the Planning and Zoning Committee made, or if you think that there is an error in the actual ordinance. If you think that the ordinance is unfair,
I think
or
the
is it that you
ordinance
think
is unfair. Yeah.
Okay, and you don't think that
it
they
can be construed differently, because
Okay.
I don't see it as a law. I see it as an ordinance, and then I see generally as kind of a guideline.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Elizabeth,
Mhm.
could you speak a little bit more to some of the flooding that's happened and what expenses those have incurred and whose liability that is? Could you speak a little bit more to that?
Well, yes, because I've just been through that all summer long. So you know that the big rainfalls that came this year, and I don't live in Boise in the summer. I'm up in Stanley. So I got a call that was flooding between these two and flooding into the house itself, you know, a lot from the tenants there. So, and it was because of that torrential downpour, and that started backing up all the way. You flood, yeah. So I think a lot of people flooded. So the way that lot, that very odd lot, it just overflew the banks and went right into that house. So I tore out all the flooring, the walls, everything had to be taken out. I had to move out the tenants and completely redo it. It happened twice after that. It didn't get to the house because I had put up barriers, sand barriers, and I think that helped a lot. But it got to be within about an inch or maybe even a half an inch underneath the alley, where the canal goes underneath the alley onto, you know, 22nd Street, I guess, and comes back up. And it will start backing up from there. I mean, I can't raise the alley, you know. So what I did is I completely redid that little residence that we're talking about, moved the tenants back in, and it flooded again. And this, by the way, goes all the way down the alley. All my neighbors down the alley, they flooded, coming right out of there from that piece of property. So we had a meeting with the Boise Canal Company. They take no responsibility for it. We asked them if the water could be, you know, maintained better, that when that things come, can you turn it off wherever they do that? They said that that's what they had been doing, but the water levels were where they should have been. So what I did, because I don't want this to happen again, and I don't want it to happen to my neighbors, is I had someone come in and dig out that canal in between those two properties. And they took out, I think they said 22,000 cubic feet of, you know, leaves and trash. And I was just trying to get some inches so it didn't overflow. So they dug that out all the way through that property. And then I added another line of bricks on top of it to give even more, hoping, sealing them between the lower bricks and the other bricks to see if I could get it to stop. That's all I can do to make that not happen again.
Thank you.
But it has ruined things in that little house because of that for years.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Looks like that's it for questions now, Elizabeth. I think I saw a note from Nina. Did they have to leave?
Madam Mayor, we did have Eric Hagan here for the Neighborhood Association. He did have to leave. He said the Neighborhood Association has no issue or comments to add.
Could you, I didn't hear that. The Neighborhood Association has no,
No issue or comments to add to the appeal.
gotcha. Okay, so they took no position. All right, is there anybody from the public that is now here to testify on this? There is not. So with that, I'm going to ask staff if there's additional follow-up.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council, apologize. I stated that unanimously this was denied at HPC. Ms. Tolles correctly pointed out that there was one vote in opposition, so it was 4-1.
Okay.
So that's it.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I do have a question for Josh. Actually, I think
Yes.
Councilmember Wiltz beat me to it, though. Go for it.
Jinx. Josh, I have a question about the environmental impact and whether that came up as part of the hearing. Could you speak to that in terms of where the lot is located and in regards to flooding?
Madam Mayor, Council Member Willetts, it was certainly discussed at the hearing. There are no findings in ordinance directly related to visibility, to shapes of the lot, which you would see like in a variance application, for instance. So it was certainly discussed at the Historic Preservation meeting, but it was not a reason for decision.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Halliburton.
Josh, so one of the things that Elizabeth brought up was that the house is not considered historic. We would still require, my understanding of the historic district is that even on a newer house or a house that didn't fall into a historic category, that we would still require them not to use vinyl windows. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, that is correct.
So I'm building a brand new house on 8th Street in Washington. Even if it's a brand new house, I'm still not using vinyl windows, I don't think.
That is correct.
All right.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I think I've got a couple.
Oh, yeah.
And then Councilmember Corliss too. You're good? Oh, okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So Josh, I'm not finding error in or grounds for appeal, but the part that I guess is most curious to me is the functionality. If they're continuing to have these recurring water issues, is that something that's ever, so if the windows are not functional because of that, is that something that's ever taken into consideration?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Council Pro Tem Stead, absolutely. And the Secretary of Interior's guidelines for rehabilitation of historic properties do take that into account. There is a hierarchy of preference. The ultimate preference is retain the existing historic windows that were original to the structure. Second to that is repair. Third to that is replace. We do have options available that are not wood. There is metal clad wood, there is fiberglass, and on a secondary structure like this one at the rear of a property, there's also composite windows which are allowed, which is called a Fibrex material. It's similar to vinyl, but a little bit higher quality. And those, I'm not a window expert, but those synthetic windows certainly don't have the issues with moisture that wood windows would.
Great, thank you. So quick follow-up on that. So we're not, the question here is not between wood or vinyl necessarily. There are other options available that are not wood that could fall within the allowance of the historic district. Thank you.
Are you done? Okay. I have a motion.
Oh, no, we're not finished.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I want to make sure, Councilmember Halliburton is unmuted. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I wasn't quite finished with my questions. I had just had a
Oh,
couple.
sorry.
Yeah,
So
no worries.
just keep going.
Yeah.
And then let us know when you're done. I won't call anybody else until you tell me you're done.
So Josh, throughout the historic district guidelines, I don't think that when it comes to windows, we just use generally should use or generally shouldn't use. We use that throughout the entire document. Why do you use those terms instead of like you have to or you can't do this?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, I'll do my best to answer that. Historic preservation guidelines are very nuanced. It's a very nuanced document. There are ways to proceed with construction in historic districts that don't fall into you shall do this or you shall do that. The entire guidelines document is written as generally appropriate or generally not appropriate to give flexibility in interpreting and applying those guidelines. And the Historic Preservation Commission staff, we have consistent ways that we use that language. And that would have been communicated again if an application was submitted prior to installation.
Great. And then the last one here, this was also, when I read through the transcripts, this was sort of like breach, but it never quite was, I think, thoroughly discussed. There was some questions about could they have approved some windows versus not all the windows. And I don't think they ever got to the answer, but I think that the answer is no, that you can't do just some windows versus not doing all of them, because there also says you generally, it is generally not appropriate to use multiple window styles throughout a new building. So I think that that was maybe the reason why they couldn't require the three that you couldn't see to stay vinyl and then the other three to be replaced. But that's another rule that we have in there as well, is that they shouldn't have multiple window types.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, that is correct. These are guidelines. The commission can vary from them, but doing so would not be consistent with, again, that provision and document you just outlined.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Madam Mayor, just following up, it seemed like as I read through the transcript, there was some confusion. But in the end, the confusion, even though they didn't quite get to the reasons, they still made the right decisions that were based off of the guidelines. And that's kind of what I've been getting to in some of my questionings as I've been observing those. That's it.
All right, thank you. All right, now we've heard from staff. So now we have final rebuttal from the applicant appellant, if you have more to say, Elizabeth. You'll just need to do it here so we've got a record. Yeah, no, I need you in the mic so that Jimmy and Lucy can hear you.
I guess I have, a question is, are they guidelines? Are they laws? Are they guidelines in an ordinance? I think that the language of them allows for exceptions, that it is not a ironclad law or rule, or I don't see it that way anyway. So.
All right, thank you. I'm going to close. Nope. Further questions for staff, excuse me.
I do have one follow-up question. Just to confirm, there was never an application that was made. This came about due to a complaint.
Madam Mayor, Member Corliss, there was not an application made prior to installation. There was a retroactive approval requested.
Okay, thank you, Josh.
No, because I probably should have, no, because we've already moved beyond that. Sorry about that. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the appeal of application DRH 23-00121 at 2123 West Eastman Street on 0.14 acre property in an R1CH zone. Indirect staff to come back with revised findings of fact.
Great. I thought you were going to start discussing and I was just going to ask to pause. So the final part is directing staff to come back with revised findings.
I will second for discussion purposes.
Great. All right. So we've got a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion.
Madam Mayor, I feel like the Historic Preservation Commission erred in not considering the safety concerns of the installation of vinyl windows here. I think this is a very unique situation with the canal running through the property. I think one of the reasons that we allow vinyl windows in basement window wells is that other types of windows are more subject to rot and could succumb to moisture. I think this is an area where there is a lot of moisture, and there's even a recent experiences with that moisture causing damages to the property. And I'm concerned, I have safety concerns about requiring other types of windows here. So for that reason, I will be approving the appeal.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So I'm actually going the other direction here. I was expecting a motion to deny. This one seems relatively a little more straightforward to me than some of the other ones that we've seen. Vinyl windows in our historic districts, it's something that seems pretty clear that we've seen before in the past. And I think one of the other things as I'm looking through here, I'm trying to figure out like what the error was. So if there was a safety concern, it seems like maybe there was some different options that they could have done outside of the wood windows as well. I'm also a little reluctant just because this was a retroactive application. Had this application come from the very beginning, there's no way that we would have installed that. We would have allowed them to use vinyl windows to begin with. They would have had to have filed a variance you know, for the canal running through, and I'm not sure that the canal or flood irrigation would be a hardship. Again, I don't know that that's what was in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission. They were really interpreting the guidelines. And from my understanding, I think that they followed the guidelines pretty closely, and I don't necessarily see an error in their decision.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
thank you. I'm going to support the motion. I always have concerns on these because I do think that they violate private property rights when we make folks replace things and it costs money and it's not a historic structure. That aside, because I know that we can't always consider those things, I do think that this is a really unique situation because of the environmental impact, because of where this building is, because of where the lot is, because of where the canal is. I don't think that that was taken into consideration about why there needed to be something different here. And I'm thrilled that house is now available to be rented, that the tenants are back in it, and that they have a safe place to live. And I think we need to uphold and honor that.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to thank Elizabeth for coming. I think some of the points that were made, I think really speak to us on maybe things that we can do to look at the code and look at what our Historic Preservation Committee was looking at when they took this. You know, I really, when you talk about having a local landlord and housing affordability, housing inventory, this is a very unique parcel. You know, and I just want you to know that I've taken that to heart. I think that that's something that we really should look at to try to add that up. I think in terms of this appeal, as I review, you know, the minutes from the prior meeting and kind of this discussion, I'm also kind of concerned at that precedence that, you know, an action like this could mean for you know, others that may want to just skirt the rules and may not have the unique things that you do have, and may need to be reviewed and how, you know, how we how the kind of code that we have. All right. And so I just want to kind of thank you for approaching it with those recommendations. And I wish we could have had this conversation maybe before that installation and seen what we could do as a council. So, but thank you.
Madam Mayor. Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Let's
Kathy.
go over here.
Okay. I, as I mentioned already, I'm not gonna support the motion, even though I was the second. But I feel for the safety and the environmental concerns that have been mentioned, but it also sounds like from staff that there are some alternatives to that. And I trust that the staff would have worked within that, within those unique circumstances to find a solution that would have fit this property. And so, yeah, for that reason, I'm not finding error or grounds for appeal. I'm otherwise supportive of the staff report and won't be able to support the motion.
Yeah, and I just want to say here really quick is that I agree. I think that there's some problems with how we have things written in our historic district that I don't agree with, and maybe could be resolved. It's not a historic home. It cannot be seen. And so it does seem to place some undue burden on homeowners and their property, especially those who are trying to preserve some rentals. However, my bigger concern is that it was outside the process that's already outlined within city code. And so for that, I won't be supporting the denial.
Madam Mayor, I'd ask unanimous consent to withdraw my motion.
Without objection.
Madam Mayor, I move that we deny the appeal DRH 23-121.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'm not going to ask for further discussion,
I would like to.
except for the person that withdrew his motion, because everybody else has probably just stated why, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I am tired of hearing what I think are really unfair enforcements. We heard a lot of fairness arguments today and saying, oh, we really got to revisit this. We really got to well, let's do it. Let's do it, because I don't want to see another one of these where we're just dealing with fairness arguments over and over again. And I think Councilmember Bajent I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we take things on a case-by-case basis and we don't set a precedent with the decisions we make. So I'm sorry it didn't go the way, but I appreciate everybody's thoughtful consideration of this.
I'll jump in since you've touched on we got to do this piece. We will do this. And we just made 3 appointments to the Historic Preservation Commission. And one of the discussions that I had with them was to get to the generally piece is that these are guidelines, they are in code, but there is discretion on the part of the commission to have real discussion about the intricacies of individual lots. Appreciate that, the nod to process, that process is really important in this sense, that there should have been an application and that could have happened. I just tend to disagree with Councilmember Halliburton, although the commission already ruled, but an application needed to be filed, the process needed to be followed. The commission does have leeway in weighing site-specific things and really bringing to the table and the dais a critical look at both the guidelines, but the individual and unique circumstances, particularly in a lot like this, that's up against an alley, that's hidden by a fence, that has no access to the street. And I say that because we will pick these things up to determine the look that needs to be had, as well as the discussion amongst commission members and likely a joint commission council meeting to discuss kind of the values, vision, and how we use the tools that are rightly laws with the circumstances we have and the vision that this council and my office has for affordability and these other things that you brought up. I won't be voting, but I wanted to say that since you brought up that we need to work on this for real, and that needs to be on the agenda for a work session in council. With that, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
No.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
No.
Corliss.
Yes.
4 in favor, 2 opposed, motion carries.
We will take, I'm sorry, I should have acknowledged you one last time, Elizabeth. Thank you. That's the action for that one. I do believe that we should take a 5-minute break before picking up I'm sorry, I left my glasses at home, so I'm using these readers, and there is just one, that's right, because we'll hear before we take the break, why don't you read the withdrawal for the tree service one? So we'll do that just so that that's taken care of, and then we'll take a 5-minute break. If you would read the withdrawal notice.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, members of the council, late correspondence was received this afternoon in which the appellant of CZC 23-00119, a home occupation application for a tree service business on 0.18 acres in an R1C zone located at 10832 West Edna Street, requested to withdraw their application via email correspondence. Therefore, this application will not need to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we'll come back at 7:15. All right, welcome back. Sorry, everybody. I started doing follow-up work in the office and lost track of time. So we are now going to take the final appeal. This is an appeal of a notice of order declaring 730 West Idaho Street to be a dangerous building. I'm going to walk through the process and then see who's here for this. First, I see Tim Keene up, perhaps to kick this off representing the city, but then Jason Blaze. We have the appellant, Union Block Associates. Ken Howell is representative of the Union Block here. All right, will the record reflect that there is not a representative unless they're online? They are not online. We then would go to a neighborhood association. We don't expect the neighborhood, but is the Downtown Neighborhood Association represented here? Online? All right, from there, we will open this up. It is a general public hearing. You don't have to be party of record because this is an action taken by the director. Is anybody here to speak on this as a member of the public? All right, we've got one. And if you change your mind while this one individual is talking, just let me know. You can come up. Is anybody online? All right. After we hear from the public, we're going to have staff follow up, answer any questions that the council may have. Then the appellant will have an opportunity to rebut if they choose to arrive or to come for that part. And then I will close the public hearing and discussion will happen. So that'll be the order. And with that, I'm going to kick this over to, it looks like Tim Keene, to present the city report.
Mayor, members of council, Tim Keene, Director of Planning and Development Services. This is a hearing on an appeal of our notice in order to vacate and repair 730 West Idaho Street, the Union Block building. Presenting for the city is Jason Blaze, who runs the Buildings Division within Planning and Development Services. Jason is also the city's chief building official. Jason's worked for the city since 1999, and he's been chief building official since 2009. As chief building official, Jason has many certifications in building code, and that includes the certified chief building official, which is the certification that's required in order to be the city's chief building official. He's got many years of experience doing that. Jason, come on up and go through the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and great
Welcome,
to meet
Jason.
you. Great to meet you, new council members. This is the subject building, a beautiful historic building we have downtown. We love seeing, historic buildings get revitalized. I've been involved with many of them in downtown. It can be quite a project, right? These older buildings have surprises when you get in there. So we like to see this happen. The purpose really is, it's the appeal, but this is coming out of City Code Title 9, Chapter 11, our dangerous building code. We don't get into that very often. It's only when we get to the point where buildings are unsafe and our building code tells us to jump to this code in order to address issues that are going on in the building. So we're going to talk about the building, a little bit of brief history. It is a 120-year-old building plus, 122, 123 years old in the heart of downtown. The scope of the project, the owner is desiring to add a basement underneath this historic building. And the basement also extends under the sidewalk for a distance, and it extends a little bit under the alley in the back. So we have issued 3 phases of permits starting in 2018. They haven't quite followed the phasing of the permits. It's been a little bit different than we thought was going to unfold. It's been off and on renovation work occurring for, I think we're going on 5-6 years now. So it's been, and it's not close. There's progress, but it's just not close. Many closures of the sidewalk, the roadway lane, the alley. And recently we had a cooking hood fire in one of the restaurant spaces. And that initiated a city team with fire department, with our PDS inspectors. And coincidentally, it timed with a report from the owner's engineer. Same day, the fire and that report showed up. We had been asking for an updated engineering report in this basement for months. And not only have we been asking for that, we've been asking for assurance for the safety of the tenants and the public to occupy this building as this is being renovated. Because as these stages occur in the basement, there's different shoring, different things you have to address as it continually changes underneath there. The report we got was very good addressing some things that need to be addressed there, and there's concerning things in there to address, but the engineer would not give us assurance of tenant public safety underneath the building. And that is a must. We have to have that. So at that point, our city team decided to post the building unsafe and have it vacated, and that was on November 9th. And again, this is about safety for the tenants and the public entering a building that has significant remodel occurring underneath it. And in addition, about within a week after the city team posted it, we went and hired our own engineer. This is not typical. We really typically rely on the owners to hire engineers to evaluate this. But since they would not do it for the shoring, our city team went ahead and did it anyway. And we had them further evaluate it, confirm what we did as an action. And he basically came back and validated the city's safety concerns. Not only did he look at the report of the owner engineer, agreeing with some of that, also added a few other items that needed to be addressed, but he addressed the shoring. And basically in the shoring in some areas of this building is 2 to 3 times overstressed. And that's with tenants and people in it. So this is a severe structural issue for us that needs to be addressed. And following that, the fire marshal issued a fire department memo basically saying we can't enter this building for firefighting unless we get support under the building. So the dangerous building code has a list of about 18 items in it. And if we can show that it meets any one of those 18 items in the building, it's considered a dangerous building, and we have the authority to issue a notice in order to vacate or repair the building. So these are the items that were chosen on the notice and order. And just running through, shoring again is one of the biggest issues going on under this building. Shoring is meant to be temporary. It's meant to be temporary while you get your permanent structural supports in. In the building code, temporary often means about 6 months, maybe a year. It doesn't mean 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, which we're going on with this building.
And I've got a question. Is that arrow pointing to the red thing?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
So that's a temporary steel shoring post that's probably screwed at the top and then just sits on a block on the bottom. Not very super secure, but that's what they put in under here. And
So-
if you look closely, I mean, there are shoring posts that are bowing underneath. And bowing means it's overloaded. There's another picture of a little bit of bow and a post. There's a sticker that shows you what you can load these things to. And the taller the post, the less load it can take. And this thing's near the maximum of the post. I think it's at 11 feet, and you can get up to maybe 12 feet max, but the higher you go, the less load. So what that means is you need to space them more closely together, right? You need more shoring. And in the right top, we have an area of kind of floating floor joists. There's a bearing wall on the left, there's a beam cut on the right, and there's floor joists right in the middle, not bearing on anything, overspanning. That's something that can collapse right there. And keep in mind, there's tenants above this floor. You can have an office there, you could be dining in a restaurant there. There's not even temporary shoring in this area. The other photo shows something similar at the bottom, and then the bottom right again shows more shoring that's bowed there. There's quite a bit of load right there. And you don't need to be an engineer to look at that and know that's overloaded. So the other issue is numerous areas of cracking, and it's throughout the building, interior and exterior. There's several areas of the facade separating on the exterior. And here's a picture of the brick facade on the rear. That's several inches of a gap separating from the face of the building. Here's a column on the left. Again, several inches of gap separating from the building. Another large crack at the top at a key connection. On the right, we have more cracks in the brick. There was a lot of cracks near the front. There's a lot on the back exterior, but there's a lot of interior cracks in the front of where they have taken out some of the support in the front of the building down low. So a lot of cracking. Pretty big crack on the left on the brick again near the front. And then you can start to see some smaller cracks in the sandstone on the exterior, and that's what's shown on the right. This is a main column support on the south side of the building. The infill has been taken out between these columns, but these columns are very old and they're falling apart, they're cracking, they're being held together by strapping right now. And there's added shoring to help relieve the loads. So these are an issue. These are a very big structural issue. This is what's holding up the front of the building right here. When the infill between those columns was taken out on the left, there seemed to be not enough shoring when that happened, and it seems that the floor of the front of the building just dropped some. And when you went, if you look on the right, the floor has got a gap and is pulling down from the interior walls just because of what, you know, there wasn't enough shoring when they were taking the infill out. Here's another picture of the infill out between the columns. It's really key. They need to address that. There's a lateral loading that needs to be between those columns to help support the front of this building. It's in a very vulnerable spot, basically, I would say. And then, of course, we need to do the same at the rear of the building. There's also a question of a west basement wall, a little bit of surcharge issue, probably need to look into. This is the east basement wall. The support of the building's in question here. It's kind of got bearing on maybe the adjacent building. It's got way over notch floor joists there. And on the right, you can see the former brick footing just hanging there. It needs some structural support underneath it. We really need to see like a concrete wall footing to support this east wall. This needs to be put in. We've also had trade work that's been altered and relocated in here with no permits. We've got water heaters, geothermal, electrical, and we have a new basement wall there. It's a bearing wall, and we're glad to see basement bearing walls in there, but this one wasn't on the plans. So we had to get plan modification and work with the engineers to make sure that was good. Also did not have any inspections for the footing. And then when the fire happened with one of the restaurant spaces, one of the fire inspectors noticed there was a screw in the fire flow switch in the fire riser room. Because of this, when the fire happened, it didn't send a signal to the fire alarm panel and then notify our fire department. So thankfully, somebody saw the fire when it was happening, shooting through the roof of the shaft, called the fire department, they came, took care of the fire. But again, these are dangerous issues that fall right into the line of the dangerous building code. All of those that have been through. So recent activities since posting the building, the owner has submitted plan modifications to address some of the structural concerns. That's great. That's what we've been asking for months. We've had one significant crack repaired and inspected by the engineer. We've approved work to double up the floor joist in order to remove some of the shoring. So we've approved the work, haven't seen the work yet, but that's a good start. We've seen work and we've approved work to build the new support wall on the east side. So again, that's great. We haven't seen the work done yet, but we've approved it. And they also did submit a lateral load design on the front of the building, which is a huge issue we're reviewing right now with our engineers we contract with. So this is progress since we posted it, but there's still a lot more to be done. We still have outstanding items such as other cracks to repair. We still need lateral load on the rear. We need to evaluate the west basement wall. We need a design we can approve in the glass pavers and the sidewalk and the alley. We still need trade permits, and all this work needs engineer oversight. It's very important that the engineer be involved. We need third-party inspections in some cases, and we need inspections by our PDS staff. And we've been having a little bit of issues there. So basically, in conclusion, because of these safety concerns for the tenant and the public, because of these unaddressed structural items shown and explained in this presentation, and there's probably more, the building plainly meets the criteria of a dangerous building. So these outstanding items justify the notice and order to vacate and repair the building. It's just not safe for occupancy right now. And with that, I'd stand for any questions.
All right. Did you have one?
Nope.
Okay. I thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. I now just want to check in. Is the appellant here with us this evening? All right. Please, will the record reflect that the appellant did not appear? I'll now move to the public. Sir, you're welcome to kick us off. And there's a mistake on this slide. The public testimony is actually 3 minutes for a council meeting.
3?
Yes. That's our typical procedure.
I need 3 hours.
Oh,
It's okay.
sorry.
I'm
That's
sorry.
that's why
I'm just kidding.
that's why we say
Just
3
kidding,
minutes,
just
sir.
First, I'm a native of Boise, Idaho. I've lived here my whole life. And I've seen some things happen in downtown Boise before you kids were even born around here. And some of the things that took place came under what's known as urban renewal. They got rid of a bunch of historic buildings downtown that, in my opinion, should never have been torn down. The character of this town has changed over the years to where don't let them take the Union Building. I don't care what it is. With his presentation that was done here, I see two faults. The fault of the owner and the fault of the engineers with the city to have him do what he's supposed to do. The work that I've seen done here was very, very amateurish as far as shoring up, doing things, etc. There's two people that are fault here. City of Boise for allowing it to take place.
Sir, I'd ask that you address the council.
Yeah, City of
Thanks.
Boise allowing to take place, and also the person that owns the building. I need to ask a question. Is this building on the National Historic Register?
That's a question we can get back to you after because I don't know the stats. I just realized I forgot to have you read your name and address into the record.
Okay, my name is Sandy Blodgett. I live at 12290 West Driftwood Drive in Boise, Idaho. I used to live out here at a place. I went to an old 3-room school called Holcomb School out here. Anyway, I go back a long ways. To me, it would be a dirty shame. I don't know what the ultimate goal is for this, but please don't let them, if it's not on the National Historic Register, put it there. I know that there's rules that will take place when you're on an historical register that has nothing to do with the owner or Boise City. New rules need to be followed. I think it should be on the register. If it's not, I would recommend that it be on the National Register. I hate to see these neat old buildings in this town. It's not what it used to be. We can still preserve some of the stuff that's still there and enjoy the architecture that took place back a long time ago in the face of Boise City. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just quick comment. This council member Halliburton. I definitely haven't been around in Boise as long as you have. My grandpa has, though. He grew up in downtown Boise. He's 101 years old now. I can tell you one thing, just to maybe hopefully reassure you. There's not a single council member up here or a single person at the city that doesn't want to see that building preserved. I think that our number one goal is one, to make sure that people are safe, but that also people are safe in that building and that building doesn't go away. So I just want to make sure that I reassure you with that comment.
All right. Anyone else from the public? Okay. We will then move. I'm going to ask that the record reflect that online. There's nobody online either. Move back to staff follow-up. Jason, I wonder if you might have the answer. I know that we have a facade easement with the city because this building is so valuable to the city, but if you could address that and then go into the other follow-up.
Mayor, members of council, this building is on the National Register. It's also a locally designated landmark, and we have a facade easement.
And that facade easement means that as the city owns the front of the building, really, if you could say a little bit about that, Tim.
Well, we have an agreement with the owner that the city has an interest in the exterior of this building to protect it and preserve it.
Yes, great, thank you. All right, Jason.
And Madam Mayor's council, we want to see this building fixed and we want it safe. That's the bottom line. And we want to see an effort to put permanent structural supports on there. There just hasn't been the effort in these last months, years.
Thank you. The appellant has a chance for rebuttal. Will the record please reflect, is it the appellant online? Will the record please reflect that the appellant is not here? I will take any final questions before I close the hearing.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'd just like to clarify, and Tim alluded to this, that declaring a dangerous building does not mean demolition. Can we have someone speak to that directly, please?
Madam Mayor, council member, that is correct. Demolition is an option under this code, but repair and rehabilitation is also an option, yes.
Mayor, Councilmember Willetts, the reason that we took this action was to save this building, to be very clear. The intention, we have a facade easement on it, which represents the community's dedication to saving this building. And we believe strongly that the action we took to issue this notice, have the building vacated and demand its repair will hasten the preservation of this building, to be clear. That is why this action's been taken. That's the only reason it's been taken. And the city will take every action we need to in order to protect and save this building.
Thank you. All right, with that, I will close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move to deny the appeal on the basis that there is sufficient evidence in the record to support staff's determination that this is a dangerous building.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Discussion? Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All right. Thank you all. Thanks, sir, for coming and your care for this building that I actually had an office in for years. This is a special building to many of us. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned. See everybody next week.
See you later.
Bye-bye. Feel better, Jimmy.
Yeah, see ya.